Hello and welcome to Across the Pond WNBA. Back. Oh, I'm back. I mean, Michelle, you never left. I am back this week. Had a stand in last week, and Kirsten, well done, Kirsten. You did an awesome job. I did watch back. So, did you miss me, Michelle?
We missed you. We actually, but I'm not gonna lie, Kirsten did a great job. But we miss your banter back and forth, the analysis, all your insights. It was a ton of fun, but we got you back this week. So, what was the most interesting part that you found in last week's podcast before we jump into this week's podcast?
Well, there's obviously lots to talk about the Liberty,
Yes.
as Kirsten does the Across the Pond Liberty show. Cool. Favorite part. You know what? Actually, I love the feel of the show and the rhythm that you guys had. I thought that was awesome all the way through. It kind of felt like you didn't need me anymore. Uh,
We do.
but no, it was a great show, and Kirsten did a great job. So I appreciate that of her. This week, her co-host Stacia was in Dallas. She went to the Dallas Liberty game down there in Dallas and had a blast. It has to be said. The Wings were very kind enough to give us media credentials, so Stacia went about her business. She stood on like the side of the court, just taking pictures throughout the game. No one bothered her. It was fine. And then she did the pre-game and post-game press conferences. She got a couple of cheeky questions in, which was fun. She asked Sabrina who her favorite Sabally is. We did put that up on our social media feed, so you can check that out on Across the Pond WNBA across social media. Uh, and Sabrina was hilarious with her reply. But yeah, I thought Stacia did a tremendous job in Dallas, and what a game to go and see as well when you get to go see the Liberty play.
Absolutely. And you had a few records,
Few
just
records.
a thing or two that happened, just
Yeah, yeah. We'll get into Brianna's scoring a little bit later. I do want to give a shout out to Travis, who's a Liberty fan, who'd taken his daughter down to the game as
yes.
well. He got to speak to Stacia before the game and during. So we did pop a picture. He went in full costume, full Liberty costume to the game. So we popped that up on our social media feeds as well. So you can check that out. So big shout out to Travis, and thank you for getting in touch. Now, Michelle, it's been a busy week. We're in the final weekend of the regular season. Um, this week, just yesterday, in fact, Riquna Williams, the charges that we spoke about a few weeks ago, maybe even a month ago now, the charges against her were dropped. There was 9 charges relating to domestic abuse, and they were all dropped. And pretty much straight away, Riquna said that quite openly that she wanted to return to the Las Vegas Aces. That obviously is quite a tough subject, because we start to talk about athletes and domestic abuse. The charges were dropped, but this isn't a first time offence either, because she did serve a suspension last year for 10 games. And I think we spoke about this before. I mean, that was kept under wraps and no one actually knew about it
Mhm.
until this time had kind of come around. So, how did the Aces react to this? How did they move forward? Because obviously, as a team, and if you think about the team dynamic and where we're at just now, they are kind of desperate to have an extra player there. But at the same time, it may not be the best look for the Aces or for the league itself.
Absolutely. I think it's layers to it. One, I'm sure there's been a call with the commissioner, absolutely, on this. So the commissioner's definitely going to weigh in. The team is, I'm sure, all of the executive leaders have sat in that boardroom and talked about how do you move forward and what is the best way to move forward. What's best for the player, the org, as well as the league as a whole. I think what's going to be difficult is having she's going to have they're going to weigh both instances, whether you want to or not. The fact that everyone now knows about both, you have to look at the Well, do we wait until there's a third strike? You have to weigh the fact that the charges were dropped this time. But I think they're going to look deeper into why the charges were dropped, whether the prosecutors will move forward, because in this particular case, they can move forward if they want to. I don't think they will. And when you think about time and resources and the economy right now, it's probably not the best way to use the city's resources. But when you think about the league and the young ladies that are watching the league, I would love to hear a statement from Riquna right now, because saying you just want to be back for me isn't enough. This is not the first time your name's been caught up in things like this. You went to jail a year ago in Orlando. Now you're in the same situation here. It becomes a situation where when you keep coming up in those same situations, whether you did it or not, whether regardless of what the truth is, sometimes how people perceive you is reality. And that's why I would love to hear a statement from her. And I'm sure the team is probably telling her, don't make one. Uh, just because that can go either way. So I understand why everything is really quiet right now until the team kind of figures out what they want to do. And it'll be interesting to see the response that comes from both the organization as well as Raquana moving forward.
I think as well, like I've always had this strong stance when it comes to domestic abuse
Mhm.
and rape and all these things because I kind of class them as one and the same. And like we see NFL players, we see NBA players, we've seen across MLB, these things happen. I think in MLB, if you're accused, you're suspended immediately. If you're found guilty, like you're banned for like 100 games or whatever it is now. They play 164 games a season, so 100 games is like pretty much
Yeah.
a whole season, and you're suspended without pay. I the thing of her wanting to come back, I there's the other side of it where you kind of want to do right by the victim, and you also want to do the right by Raquan as well, because there's other things that go in and are in play, and I think for me, I really want the league to come out with a strong stance and
Yes.
say, we understand Raquana wants to come back. We understand she's under contract with the Aces, but we are going to level a suspension and we're going to level suspension for these playoffs because effectively that's when she's coming back.
Yeah.
And we level that suspension for the playoffs and then we look forward to next season
Mhm.
with no kind of yes, she'll get to play in the league or no, she won't get to play in the league. Let's leave it open. Let's see what work she can do through the off season.
Mhm.
And I think now it's a bit difficult because I think they're still together. I think her partner and her are still together. So I wonder as well if you bring in the partner and you know there's mediation or there is counseling, something along those lines to help them uh, as well. So I think if it's me, if I'm Kathy's, and sometimes we do that question for our guests, like if you were Kathy for the day, what would you do? I
Mhm.
think in this instance, I would level suspension for the rest of the season, basically, and work would need to be done through the off season before a decision is made in terms of how we move forward, whether she does get to return to the league or not.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate.
Oh dear.
Let's play devil's advocate. Not saying because I wasn't there, I don't know what happened, who started it. We only see what we see in the paper, which says that the wife started it or the victim started the actual fight. Under whatever circumstances, I don't believe people should be putting their hands on anybody at all, especially in relationships. That's a very fragile state where you can lose trust, and that's something that's very difficult to rebuild. I think weapons being pulled on someone is another one that it takes all the trust out of the window.
Yep.
They've been married for less than a year. From the reports online, her partner has left the state and chose not to show up for the hearing, and that's why the charges were dropped. I have to play devil's advocate in my head because I always wanna see both sides, I wanna understand both sides. Are you not showing up because you know that you started this and that you've now put someone's career in jeopardy? And you know this person already has 1 strike against them, and this is strike 2, which will honestly could put her in a position where regardless of whether she did it or not, her career could be over. And it could be because you're bitter, because you're angry and upset. And I told you, this is a situation where Raquana could very well be the victim this time around. We don't know. So leveling a suspension and putting her in a position where her career is completely gone without digging through and getting the facts, without reaching out and trying to get the whole story, I think that's something that has to be done if if you are to move forward. I think people should be innocent until proven guilty because sometimes you could do something one time and people will leverage that and use it against you so that they can control you and they can get whatever they want. And I would hate to see that happen as well. Not saying that it is, just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah,
I
and
also,
I
like
think
I said in the beginning, when it keeps happening, it's not a good look and perception is reality.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but I want to be fair and always weigh both sides and see the complete story versus sometimes if you've been a victim yourself, you might put yourself on the victim side. Or if
yeah,
you've been an athlete, you put yourself on the athlete side. I don't want to do that. I want to do what's right, period.
and I think that's kind of the work that I'm talking about through the off season. Like, let's maybe suspension's a hard word, but let's just say you're not playing through the playoffs, and then we do that work, we do that investigation, we do that work on you as a
But
person.
is it right to take a potential championship from her? That hurts her career too.
That does hurt career. It also hurts the team and the
Exactly.
organization as well.
Exactly.
So I think, yeah, there's a lot
It's
that
tough. It's
Kathy and
tough.
a lot that Vegas management have to think about. So on to happier news. Breanna Stewart, we touched on it a little bit earlier. She broke the single season scoring record in Dallas, and like this season, it just seems to be because I'm sure Sabrina has broken the 3-point record as well for a season, um, for a single season as well. So, like, it just seems to be that New York have stacked their roster and everyone is shining. It's not the Brianna Stewart show, it's not the Sabrina show.
Mhm.
It it's everyone. Like they all are doing well. Now, Janquel had a bad start to the season, but even now, like this is MVP Janquel, I think we're looking at again.
Yes, 100%. I love the records that are being broken. There's an asterisk, and that asterisk needs to stay there. It took you 40 games to do it. The other teams had 34 games. Diana Taurasi did that in 34 games, averaging 28.3 points. You did it in 40 games, averaging 23. And in order to actually average out to what Diana Taurasi did and not take away from her legacy and that record that Diana broke, Brianna will have to average 60 points a game for the rest of the season. I think that's an interesting fact as well. Is did you break the record? or I think you an extra 6 games and a 5-point difference per game in scoring. Absolutely think it's wonderful that she broke the record. Don't get it twisted. Love the record, but there is an asterisk next to that record because of the number of games being played.
But isn't
Over
this
time,
gonna
people will forget that. Just kinda
yeah,
like, they put the asterisk next to one of LeBron's championships, but in my head, there's no asterisk. The same will hold true for Brianna and her fans moving forward too. But in the moment, I think we gotta give Diana her props. Like, technically, that record is untapped, is untouched. Unless, if B wanna, I'll put it out there. I would love to see her pop off 60. It's only how many games are left? It's not.
two
Come
two
on.
games,
Come on,
100
you're the scoring champ.
120
Let's see
points,
it. Kobe did.
120.
How many did Kobe do? I mean,
Don't, because he
Jordan
did. No, I don't,
with the
because
flu.
he did that against the Jazz. I still have
Oh,
nightmares about that
you meant
game.
okay? Well, what about Jordan with the flu?
Yeah. All right. So you're still killing my
I'm
Jazz.
saying she
Thanks so
can do
much.
60. I'm saying she's good enough to do six. She can do it. Will it help the team win? I don't know. But I think you definitely have to realize it's a heck of an accomplishment. Absolutely. New York Liberty have a lot of things going on all cylinders, but when we're talking about these records that they're breaking, I think we have to be fair and understand that they're breaking them because they got a 6-game lead too over
I think,
prior teams.
are we not going to have this problem as the league grows, as we
Mhm.
add teams, as we add games? Because I think as the league grows, the number of games will never be 82. That'll never
Yes.
happen.
Yeah.
I think the NBA are in a bit of a quandary about their 82 games because of obviously contracts with ESPN and stuff.
Yeah.
Because ESPN will just want to pay less, obviously. Uh,
Absolutely.
but I think, like, if I can envisage a point where the WNBA is at 64 games
Yeah.
and we have, 28, 26, 30 teams maybe. And I can see that happening. And like we're talking like double the games they play now almost.
Mhm.
So we're gonna have to asterisk for a very long time on some of these records
But
because yes, they were held, but then, in 20 years' time when they're playing 64 games a season. So I
recency
wonder.
bias.
Yeah,
Recency bias. People will forget that the teams that started the league, the Pioneers, were playing 34. So it's fine. That's why I said it'll hold up.
it'll hold up.
But in the moment, I gotta make sure somebody speaks for DT. Like DT's record, I mean, it was she averaged 28. You're averaging 23. And you can do that when you have more games. So my challenge is I'd love to see her come out next year and average 28. And then I will say you were the scoring champion.
There you go.
But until then, those who know their historical facts are gonna say she's a beast, hands down. But I want to see you do what D did over an entire season.
And Diana has 1 year left on her contract.
Exactly. Olympics.
So
She
so
gonna
so
get that
who's
Olympics.
who says that Diana next year doesn't come out and, "Oh, you thought you took my record? Let
She
me
just
just take that
threw up,
back."
what did she throw up? A 42 piece? Like she was 21?
Scary how good she looks. Like, if I looked that fit and healthy after a basketball game at that age, which
Yeah.
I'm older than her, I think, so, slightly. But, wow, she's awesome. Now, moving on to Natasha Cloud. Natasha Cloud had an incident, when she was leaving a hotel where she was approached by some fans and, like, they were, you know, "Sign this, do this," like now, I don't know about you, I've met some famous people over the years. I've been very privileged in that regard. I got to come out to Portland and meet you. But whenever I see someone who's famous, I look at 2 things. What what situation are they in?
Mhm.
Are they with their family?
Yes.
Because if they're with their family, I I'll maybe wave or something, say, "Oh, hi," just to acknowledge that they're there. And if they're to call me over or something, then fair enough. But if they're on their own or they're just walking down the street or something, I'll maybe say, "Oh, I couldn't get you to sign this, could I?" Like, be polite about it. But
Yeah.
by the sounds of it, Natasha, who I think is a lovely person and has a really good reputation with fans from what I'm reading online,
Yeah.
like, I just think there's a bit of decorum people need to have, like a bit of respect. Like, I just don't understand it. We had and this is a while back now. We had a soccer player play for Celtic. His name he was Swedish. His name was Henrik Larsson, and he had a rule, and he made sure fans knew this rule. If you see me with my family, do not approach me.
Yeah.
I am not signing anything. I'll say hi, I'll wave. That's it. If I'm on my own, I'm fair game. Like, please come up to me. I am more than happy to sign stuff, talk to people, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's where I take that from because I remember his stance, and I think that's actually quite a respectful stance.
Yeah.
But, like, when you were a player, Tennessee, when you were a player in the league, like, you would have had people coming up to you,
Mhm.
I would imagine, quite a lot as well, because you dunked it in college. You made it to the Comets. Like, how do you deal with that? I've never had to deal with that. No one comes up to me and asks me for my autograph.
First off, I was the Dennis Rodman of my team. You weren't gonna try me. A fan would never in their life come up and put your hands on me and grab me. They wouldn't do it. I think they chose. You know how people know who to try.
Yeah,
Natasha's a sweet person. She's gonna be, she's gonna have a political response. She's very, very articulate in how she handles situations, and I think that's great. I was young. I don't know that I would have handled it that way, just because I've always been taught if someone puts their hands on you first, it's fair game. It's fair game. If you put your hands, and why are you putting your hands on someone in the first place? Why do you think you have a right to walk up to someone you do not know, whether you know them or not? You don't put your hands on people. We just talked about this in the first part of the segment. Like some people feel like they own people or that they control people. And when you walk across the right person, I think you're going to find out. Had that been some of the other players that I've played with and known, like a Latasha Byers or some, ooh, Latasha would have wore him out. Oh my goodness. I mean, you just don't, I don't understand how you think entertainment means you own the person that's entertaining you.
it
It's
was the
not,
whole
I will never understand that. But I have to also say, in 16 years professionally, 4 in college, 4 in North, so over 24 years playing, that may have happened where you get a fan like that. I could probably count maybe no more than 10 times in the world, going
yeah,
all over the world. So it's like it's very rare, but at the same time, I think you do need to teach people decorum. But I also go, how are you grown and you don't have decorum and social skills? I mean, I get if you don't have social skills. Some of us are shy and introverts. I had to work on mine, but I knew not to put my hands on anyone. So I'm glad she chose to say something the way she did too, because sometimes it's always best to educate. That's why I said they chose the right person to try. And she handled it absolutely better than anyone I can think of would have handled it. But I go, part of me is kind of like, if you want to put your hands on somebody, I wish you would choose the right person.
yeah.
If you want it, I want you to pick the right player that's gonna give it to you.
I think it was the comment, "I've been waiting here 2 hours for you." Like that, like,
So,
I've
are
just
you my
played a
mother? Because
I've
outside
just
of my mother, I don't move.
I've
What
just
is
played a
your point?
basketball game. Like,
Thank you. You
what the
bought a
heck?
seat to watch a game. Sit down, watch the game, eat the popcorn, cheer. We're waving at you. I'm sure she's waving. She was signing autographs. So it wasn't like she was being dismissive or rude or any of that.
Yeah,
So what makes you think that you're entitled to say that you need to be acknowledged? That's why you keep
yeah,
coming and that's why you go to private events. That's why people, like, if you really wanted to meet the players on any WNBA team, they have events where any and everyone who comes will get an autograph. So for you to come to a game and act like that, they should be banned, honestly.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I think their players need their space. Athletes in general, I think they're entitled to some space. Not saying that they should be walking around with security guards all around them, and like no one can get anywhere near them.
Exactly.
But like you see it with actors and stuff all the time as well. Like they get absolutely like pounded on because, "Oh, you didn't give us an autograph." And I'm sure Tom Hanks, even the great Tom Hanks,
Yeah.
has had this where, people got annoyed because he didn't sign stuff, but, like, he was out to dinner with his wife, like, that kinda thing.
That's a known rule. If
Whereas
someone is
whereas
eating, you don't
whereas
ask
if he
them to sign.
Yeah. Whereas if he's at a movie premiere and he's walking down the red carpet, then that is the time. Like,
Yes.
"Hello, folks," like, no time and place, folks. Like, that's all I'm
Yes.
saying, but you're right, Natasha handled it like an absolute pro
Absolutely.
that she is,
Yes.
and yeah, more power to her for that because I think you're right, it probably was the right person for
Ooh.
that to happen too. Now, we are almost upon the playoffs. It's is it just me or has it been a real like, there's more games, but, like, it feels like it was a really fast season.
It
Like,
did.
it's over
It
in a
did.
flash.
It did. This season went super fast. The summer went super fast, period. But it was a good one, though. It was a really good season. There was a lot of highlights. I love the competitiveness across the board with players, how the game is changing. It's even the moves with different teams, like, it's been amazing to see and watch. I'm excited about next season too, already.
Yeah, I'm already so excited for next season. Olympic year as well.
Woo!
I'm looking forward to seeing a competitive All Star where I'm hoping for Team USA against Team WNBA again because I loved that
Mhm.
last time. That was so awesome last time. But we have two more. We have one playoff spot available, and we
Yes.
have two teams vying for that: the LA Sparks, the Chicago Sky. I think the Chicago Sky have slight advantage. I think they've played one less game so far.
Yes.
The Sparks have been. They came into the season with so much hope, and they've had players out. They've had a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
They've brung in Carly Samuelson because her sister
Mhm.
was pregnant, having a baby. By the way, pictures are out on the Sparks website just now, with Katie Lou and baby, so you can go check those out. It's quite funny because they took the whole family down and to one of the games recently. So, and those are the kind of good stories that I like to see.
Yes.
You know, she's back, not obviously at work, but she's back. She's
Mhm.
looking. I think she's been already hitting the gym, so I don't think she'll be back for the playoffs. But I think Katie Lou will be back next season, which is awesome. And like those are the stories we want to hear. And with Chicago, Chicago were one of the teams that were gutted in the off season. Emma Messiman left, didn't even come back to the WNBA because she wanted to concentrate on Belgium. Um, Candace Parker went to the Aces. They did bring in Courtney Williams. That was a shrewd bit of business, I think,
Yeah.
for sure, because they needed someone with some energy on them, and she brings that. And Copper as well. Copper has been
Oh,
awesome,
yeah.
and they have been two teams that like have went at it this season. James Wade leaving,
That hurt.
halfway through the season, I think that really hurt because
That hurt.
at the beginning of the season, they had quite a bit of momentum, and I do feel like that kinda took the wind out of them a little bit. But they've kinda come back, and so hopefully they can get there. But if you're the Las Vegas Aces, you're gonna be playing that 8th seed. Are you sitting in the boardroom in Las Vegas Aces HQ, and are you, like, just like, "Which one do you want? Like, which one matches up?" Or do you just be like, "Ah, just put
I want
whoever's in
LA.
front of me."
I
You want
want
LA?
LA. LA came into the Aces home and whooped they behinds.
They did.
Took them. I want LA because I want to make sure that because Becky is gonna make sure they watch that tape and show them, like, look at what happened, look at what you did, and you have an opportunity on the grand stage to show people that you are ready for a championship. So bring LA back in here. Let them try that same scheme. Let them do the exact same thing they did last time, whatever they want to do. But the Aces need to send a message early in the playoffs, send them home early, and set the tone for going after a championship.
It was that I mean, that was a tough game to watch, to be honest.
Very.
And I think, yeah, you could use that video as, good motivation, for the upcoming playoffs, especially because it's the playoffs, and we know that as soon as the playoffs start, there is a level of intensity that it starts to build the further you get into the playoffs, and yeah, I think the sparks would be bounced quite quickly. I think, if I'm honest,
Built-in built-in motor is like a built-in momentum already.
no, I think the Sky, they scare me a little because they
Yeah.
have got some form back since James Wade left, and Copper is just amazing. Like, she's so good. And then when you've got like almost, I feel like Courtney Williams is like the engine of that team,
Oh,
and
yeah.
she's really driving it hard. So she gets everybody up for every play.
Mhm.
I think they lack some bigs. I think
You need
like
some
they would,
hurt.
yeah. Losing Emma, I think, really hurts. I don't know what her plans are for next season, but this season she was concentrating on Belgium. and that Euro Championships. So, which, by the way, I think she won. So, that was a right choice by Emma, to be fair. So well done by her. Now, end of the season is obviously almost upon us as well, and end of season awards and dates have been announced,
Yeah.
and they start pretty. They start pretty soon. They start on the 11th, which is just Monday. So we've got peak performers, executive of the year, coach of the year, sixth player of the year, most improved player, most valuable player, rookie of the year
Yeah.
with the rookie all team, defensive player of the year. Like the list goes on. It's crazy.
It's a good one. I'm looking at that MVP race like, "Ooh-wee." Alyssa Thomas with the triple doubles. They need to call her the 3T king queen because she is smoking out here. And you look at Breanna Stewart, she just scored, broke the scoring record, doing a lot of great things. Asia Wilson with the 53-point game that also tied a record, the WNBA record. That also edged her out. She's actually slightly ahead in the betting circles of the world to win it, slightly ahead. But it looks like it's going to be a good race. It'll be interesting to see. I
It
don't.
is.
I want them to give it to the person who deserves it, though. I love knowing that people don't even know who they're going to vote on yet, which tells you how good the seasons are. If Brianna scores those 60 points, or she just does it one game, she gets it.
Yeah. I would love. I kind of feel sorry for Lisa Thomas because I think we have this issue again where she plays for
Market,
Connecticut and
market.
she's out of market
Yep,
where and I think she does forget and forgotten about.
yep.
And she does have to put up big numbers for people to notice her. So I kind of feel bad for her.
Same, because she's been amazing for a minute, but this year she has really blown the lid off. I think remember we had the same conversation for the past couple of years with JJ, Jonquel Jones. And now that she's in New York, I think people are really gonna take notice to just how great of a player she is. And I will say this, as media and viewership, as the social media clips get out there, it'll be easier for Alyssa Thomas to be known. So it helps. Not being in Connecticut doesn't help, but if they're, I also think Connecticut's a great team to actually upset some people in the playoffs too.
Oh yeah,
So, and if
for
she
sure.
does that, once again, that's more media attention on a bigger stage.
Exactly. Now, a national panel of sports writers and broadcasters will submit votes for 10 of the regular season ending awards. The Basketball Executive of the Year honor is selected by the league's general managers, and the Peak Performers Awards are presented to the regular season statistical leaders in points, rebounds,
Mhm.
assists. So I do feel like, because I've always felt like we should have an MVP of the season as an overall, and an MVP for the regular season. So, like, you've got one for the regular season
Mhm.
that gets handed out at the end of the season, and then for the playoffs, not just a finals MVP, but like a playoff MVP. Now it's probably going to be one of those two from one of those two teams anyway. But like, yeah, I just feel like we need that overall MVP.
I will say this. I don't know if you saw all the controversy, or I should say dialogue around KD and his comments where he went into the KD's not top five. And he said team stats and team success has nothing to do with whether you're the best or not. Like if you're the best player, an MVP type player. And the way he articulated his case, many of the people within the forum, which was titled KD is not top five, they were not his fans. They actually were standing there like, that makes a lot of sense. And he was like, either you're good or you're not. Either you can score on anybody or you can't. Either you come to play every night or you don't. But I'm confused as to, and when he said it, the player that I thought about that I was like, a Russell Westbrook, great individual player, doesn't have the team success of a championship or anything like that. And there are many others. Chris Paul is another one who has put up MVP numbers. When you look in the league, You have tons of players that you can name as well. Alyssa Thomas right now, she'd be one that I go, she's not in the biggest market, but she's putting up Russell Westbrook type triple double numbers. I say that even when John Quayle was in Connecticut, I thought she was also being overlooked as that MVP type person. Should we rethink what an actual MVP is? If it's the most valuable player, why are we weighing in team success as heavily as we are? I'm not saying that it should not be a component, but maybe should we rethink what an MVP and what the best player means?
So I've heard an argument for a long, long time. LeBron James is the greatest player in the NBA, but yet how many times has he won MVP? Now, if he's the greatest, he should be winning MVP every year.
Mhm.
But narrative, it's all about
Yep.
narratives and what's the hottest story that year. And
Yes.
unfortunately for LeBron, he's not all, although he's putting up the numbers, he's the all-time scoring champ now. He took that this last year.
Yes.
Like, but he's still not got like a bunch
He's
of
in Cleveland.
MVPs.
Cleveland is not a big market,
No. And I
especially
want,
early in his career. Cleveland Cleveland
well,
was
yeah,
not. N
uh, in all fairness, yeah, it really was. It still isn't, to be fair. But if like he's the greatest player, then surely he is the MVP every year.
Mhm.
But then you have a regular season MVP where you look at the stats and whatever else. So you maybe call it something else, but yeah, there
Oh,
is.
what would you call
who-
it?
who- Well, I think you'd have to call it the uh, Michael Jordan most valuable player.
Ooh.
How do you like that? I
So
just
on the
made that
WNBA
off the
side,
cuff.
what is it? Lisa Leslie, Cynthia
Oh,
Cooper, or Diana Taurasi? Ooh.
there's so many names. Oh dear.
You'd have to look
Um,
back at the stats and see who was the most dominant across the board.
oh,
I think it would be the
that
Tamika Catchings. She's the only 80-80-80 player. 80 from the 3, 80 from the 2, 80 from the free throw line. And like,
that
but she played in Indiana. So most people don't know that.
yeah, and she's still with Indiana as well in the executive office.
I I'm not sure. That's a good
Sure.
question.
I think she is. I think she is.
Siri.
Yeah, we will have to check up on that one. Now, um, enough with season ending. This is the final weekend. Are there any games that you are particularly looking at this weekend?
Um, LA is playing Seattle for the
Yes.
final spot. I think that's a good one to watch. Seattle's a great team. Will LA beat them? I don't think so. But
Joe Lloyd has just
but
been
hey,
on
okay,
fire.
going after the scoring title on fire. Okay,
Yeah.
she she's a beast. I love her game. Um, I don't I don't know if LA will go in there. I don't think Seattle's gonna let their guard down. I don't. But if
No,
they win that game, they can kind of solidify that last spot. I
I
think
think it's
Chicago has the easier schedule.
yeah. I think Chicago, looking at it, does have these. Well, no, they've got Connecticut, and I think Connecticut can. I think that's a tough one.
Oh yeah,
Minnesota,
Connecticut. Yeah, that is tough.
Minnesota might be a bit easier. Um, and yeah, the Sparks only have the one game, and that is against Seattle, whereas Chicago have the two games, and they're already kind of ahead. So I think it's going to be Chicago to make it through, as long as they don't slip up. If they can win it tonight, 'cause this is Friday night. If they can win it tonight against Minnesota, then they can go into the game against Connecticut quite relaxed and chilled out. I am really looking forward to the final game of the season, and it is between Phoenix Mercury and the Las Vegas Aces. And I'm looking forward to this for so I'm looking forward to it because it's these two teams. I wanted to be looking forward to it more because, there was a narrative at the beginning of the season that I quite liked, which would be that Phoenix are in the playoffs. They've had a great season and, they've done really well. Now, things haven't obviously panned out that well for Phoenix, but I kind of like that the last game of the season for the Aces is in Phoenix because this Phoenix team, as awesome as they have been, they have had issues this year, and
Yeah.
I think what we'll see is Diana Taurasi go off. I really think that she's not making the playoffs this year. She's gonna be playing angry, and I think she is gonna go off. And do I think they will still win? No. I think the Aces will win overall, but Phoenix have so many injuries, so many issues. They've had coaching changes. They've had such a turmoil, like roller coaster of a season.
Yeah.
But I do think Diana will go off because she'll be like, I need to do this. I need to get this out my system. And then we're coming back next year. I think that's the way she looks at it.
Yes, and I think she's looking at that final year as the year she makes a statement. If you're gonna go out, you wanna go out with a bang. So I really wanna see how Phoenix pulls it together. I think they're gonna do big things in this offseason to make sure they kind of figure out all the different pieces of the team, what fits, what doesn't fit, and come back stronger next year. And I think everyone across the league wants to see BG back in those playoffs and being given the recognition and fighting for a championship as she deserves.
I think for her, take a nice long off season.
Yes.
I think you've earned it.
Yeah.
It's been a tough year for her emotionally as well as on the court. As awesome as she's been, so I hope she can take a nice long off season, relax with her family, and chill out. And the thing I like about Phoenix is, and their players is, they're always all around her, the
Yes.
team, and I really like that. Like it is this almost sisterhood within the Mercury that they are all together. Um, and I actually think that helps them for next year. Yeah, obviously there's one question mark, big question mark over what they do in this summer or the winter, and that is Skylar Diggins Smith. Is she going to be back next season, or because I think she has another 2 years from memory. So, do they trade her and move on? Because if they make a trade, they could end up with some pretty nice pieces,
Mhm.
and
And the
then
draft, like what pieces and what picks do they have within the draft? Who's coming out? Can they make some, trades for draft picks? They're sitting in a good situation. I think they're in a good situation. I think Skylar's probably the one that's uncertain.
I think
And
that is. And
that's tough.
this draft coming up next year, I think it's stacked. Like you look at the players that are going to be coming out from LSU, from South Carolina, like right across the board. There are some absolute gems of players that are going to be coming out next season, which hopefully means next season we have two extra teams.
Possibly.
Hopefully means we've got more spots, meaning more players can play. That's the end goal. So we'll have an extra 24 spots. So that's extra 24 players in the league, and I think that that could be quite interesting. Interesting to see which cities get the teams as well. But
Yeah.
I'm still on the Toronto and Oakland bandwagon. I think they have it wrapped up.
I've heard
But
Portland had it wrapped up.
see, I've heard Denver and Portland for
I've heard
next
Portland
for the
for
year.
sure.
Oh,
From a credible. I'm not saying it could change. It may, you never
oh,
know.
we'll
But
have
I've
to
heard Portland is in the bag.
Portland. See, I've heard Portland's in the bag for 2025 with Denver,
Interesting.
because
Yes, we're gonna
Denver
see. It's gonna be fun.
because Denver apparently put in a very credible bid for a team. So we'll see how
I
that
think Denver
goes.
should definitely get a team.
Yeah,
Tourism, that be a great place to
yeah,
put a team.
yeah. Not a great place to visit though if you're a visiting team because you have to acclimatize to the altitude. Because that happens in Denver, so that
Uh-huh.
that could make some interesting
Players
games.
should be used to it. I mean, if they play USA basketball, that's where they force you to train. They take you to Colorado.
There
Yep.
you go.
Because then when you go play overseas and in different places, you're good to go.
Yeah, good to go. Awesome. Right. Well, we will be back next week. We'll be in the midst of playoffs, which is going to be awesome. So we'll have lots of playoff action for you. Don't forget to listen to Across the Pond Liberty and Across the Pond Aces. They will both be there next week. In fact, the Liberty podcast just dropped today as well. So please do go and check that out. Stacia talking about her experience in Dallas with the Wings at the Liberty. So we'll be back next week. Have a good one.